Okay, so we've gotten a feel of the directions in 3D space and what exactly a position vector is, namely that it describes where you are in 3D space based on your X, Y, and Z axis location values. Now we're going to look at how to alter these values from C++. So let's go back into our C++ classes folder, go into first project and go into gameplay actors, and you'll see that we have our floater. Now if Visual Studio isn't already open on your computer, you will need to double click this floater to open Visual Studio. I already have it open on this computer, so I can just go into Visual Studio, and here I have the floater.cpp file. So here is the floater begin play function, and we're going to take advantage of the begin play function. If you'll recall, when the game starts, begin play is called for all actors. And we're going to take the actor and place it at the origin from wherever it may be before the game starts. So to set the actor location, we use a function called setActorLocation. So this is a function that takes an input parameter of a type known as FVector. So FVector, the F and the V are capitalized, and I'm going to use the FVector constructor to create an FVector and pass it in. So this creates a temporary FVector and passes it into setActorLocation. And for the constructor input parameters, I'm going to give 0.0f, 0.0f, and 0.0f. So it takes 3 input parameters, and those are the x, y, and z axis values for this f vector, respectively. So what should happen is when begin play is called, setActorLocation should set the location of this particular actor, the floater actor, to the f vector with values x, y, and z all equal to 0. So let's go ahead and build this. We'll compile this project, and then we'll go back into Unreal Engine, and we're going to run the program. Now first what we need to do is drag in a floater object. Now we don't have to create a blueprint out of this floater C++ class. It's an actor, therefore it has the capability to be dragged into the level. So we can drag it in, and we'll see that it actually is in the level now, and right here we'll see floater 1, and that's the automatic name that it gives to this floater. And you'll see in the details panel there's an option for static mesh, because if we go back to Visual Studio and go back to floater.h, you'll notice we put a static mesh variable here, and in the constructor we use createDefaultSubObject to create an actual static mesh. So if we go back to the editor, we'll see that this is that static mesh variable, and we can click the drop down menu and we can choose any particular static mesh that we have available. We could use the icosphere that we imported. Let's go ahead and do that, and you'll see that down here where we placed our floater actor, there's the icosphere. Now this icosphere here was the result of dragging in a static mesh straight into the world, and what it does is automatically creates a static mesh actor for us. So we can select this regular static mesh called icosphere, and we can just delete that using the delete key. And now we have this actual floater with a static mesh represented by the icosphere. So its static mesh component is the icosphere. So it's way down here. You'll look at this floater and you'll see that its location is 100, -50, -510 in world space. Now if we go ahead and click play, we'll see that if we look down there, the floater is gone, and it's here at the origin at 0, 0, 0. So that was due to calling setActorLocation and passing in the parameter of the f vector returned by the f vector constructor when we constructed it with the value 0, 0, 0. So let's go back to Visual Studio and let's do this a different way. So go ahead and highlight this input that we passed in as an argument, Control C to copy it and delete, and just above the setActorLocation call, let's type FVector And let's call this initial location. And let's set it equal to, and let's Control V to paste what we put in to set actor location. So this is a call to the FVector constructor, passing in these initialization values, and what's returned is an FVector. And that we can use to assign to our FVector variable initial location. So now we can take this set actor location and just pass in our initial location variable. We can go ahead and compile this, and of course we get an error because we need a semicolon at the end of the line here where we declare our initial location variable. Now we can compile, and once we've compiled we can go into Unreal Engine, and there is the floater actor where we dragged it into the level, and as we hit play, there it is. It's placed right there at the origin of the level. So I'm going to hit escape and come out of the play in editor. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the definition of the FVector and take a look at what it has as some of its properties. So we can right click on FVector here and we can click go to definition, and you'll see that we've gone to the vector.h header file. So this is where vector is defined, and you'll see that the FVector has some constructor overloads. We've got the regular FVector constructor here. We've got an FVector that takes a float, and this single float variable is assigned to the x, y, and z parameters. So you'll see that's got these x, y, and z parameters. If we go up to the very top of this file, you'll see that right here in the public section we have 3 float variables, and they're the x, y, and z components respectively. So going back down, if you click anywhere and type Control F to find and say FVector double colon FVector, we'll come back down to these FVector constructors, and you'll see that these particular overloads allow you to construct an FVector in various ways. You can construct an FVector using a 2D vector plus another float, and that gives you a 3D vector with an x and y from that 2D vector you passed in, and a z component equal to that float that you passed in. So the FVector class has all these built-in functions, constructor overloads, and all these things that you can spend a lot of time just going in and seeing just what type of functionality there is. But we're gonna get some experience using some of those as we make our own. Another thing to keep in mind is if we go all the way up to the top, you'll notice that FVector is a struct. And this ties into why FVector has an F at the front of it. You see, the earlier versions of Unreal Engine created these structs for doing math, and most of the math in Unreal Engine uses floats. When you see a struct in Unreal Engine, typically it's prefixed with an F because it has to do with float values. Okay, so we can close out FVector.h. We've learned a little bit about this new tool called the FVector. And we know that it has an x, y, and z component. Those are floats. And this is how you use one of the particular overloads of the FVector constructor by passing in 3 float values. There happens to also be a constructor that takes a single float value. And if we pass in a 0.0f just like that, it will create a FVector with all 3 components equal to 0. Also known as the 0 vector. So that's another way to do it.